I spent the rest of the night in the hotel, though I can't honestly say I got much sleep. Between worrying about the car, wondering whether she had seen my message before my phone died, imagining what she must have been thinking after I suddenly disappeared overnight, and listening to the rain hammer against the windows, my brain never really switched off. The next morning, the mechanic managed to get the car running again, and the whole drive home felt surprisingly normal. I was mostly thinking about finally getting back to the apartment, apologizing for disappearing overnight, and hopefully laughing about how unbelievably bad my luck had been. That plan lasted right up until I turned onto my street. There were police cars everywhere. Blue lights flashed across the building, yellow tape blocked off the entrance, and what looked like half the neighborhood had gathered outside. I slowed the car almost immediately. What happened here? The police cars weren't spread out. They were all parked in front of my apartment building. The yellow tape wasn't blocking the road. It was blocking my entrance. Did something happen at my apartment? Oh, that was when one particular neighbor immediately came to mind. Nobody ever accused him of anything, but he was one of those people the entire building quietly speculated about. He always had money. He drove a different nice car every now and then, dressed far better than the rest of us, and nobody seemed to know what he actually did for work. The more I looked at everything happening outside my apartment, the more convinced I became that this had to be about him. As my car rolled closer, people slowly started turning toward me. Within a few seconds, it felt like the whole street was watching my car. Wait, they think I know something. He was the first person who had introduced himself when I moved into the building, and we had spoken enough times over the months for people to assume we were friends. We weren't. Apart from the occasional conversation whenever we bumped into each other, I barely knew the guy. By the time I stopped the car, I was already trying to figure out how I was supposed to explain that if the police started asking questions. Before I'd even switched the engine off, 2 officers were already walking toward me. One stopped beside my window. "You're the owner of apartment 16. Please switch the engine off and step out of the vehicle." As soon as I opened the door, both officers subtly adjusted where they were standing. One shifted slightly to my left while the other stayed a step behind me. Neither of them looked away for even a second. One rested his hand near his holster while the other kept both hands ready in front of him. At the time, I barely thought anything of it. My mind was still on my neighbor. If this really was about him, then I needed to be careful not to accidentally make it sound like I knew more than I actually did. The truth was, apart from the odd conversation in the hallway, there really wasn't much to say. Then, right at the entrance to the street, I saw his car. There he is. His car had just turned into the street. He would probably have a lot of explaining to do, but the moment he saw the police cars outside the building, he turned the car around quickly and disappeared back the way he had come. I knew it. I was right. He had seen the police and run. The police were really here because of him. For a few seconds, I genuinely debated whether I should say something. I'd literally just watched him turn around the moment he saw the police. If they were looking for him, then I'd probably just watch him slip away right in front of them. But at the same time, it didn't feel right. Yes, we had never been close, but we had still lived in the same building for months. We had greeted each other, joked a few times in the hallway, even talked whenever we bumped into each other. Was I really about to be the person who pointed the police in his direction? I looked up toward my apartment. I half expected to see her standing at the window or maybe peeking through the curtains. She wasn't there. Instead, my apartment door was wide open. Officers kept walking in and out carrying cameras, evidence bags, and notebooks. What were they doing in my apartment? I glanced back toward the crowd. They were still watching. Every single one of them. Nobody was talking anymore. The moment our eyes met, a few looked away. The rest just kept staring. Why was everyone looking at me like that? I looked back toward the apartment, searching for her. Where was she? Before I could make sense of any of it, they were suddenly on me. Someone spun me around and forced my hands behind my back before I had the chance to ask what was happening. The next thing I heard was the unmistakable click of metal. What's going on? You are under arrest on suspicion of murder. Whose murder? The woman staying in your apartment. What? The next 2 days were honestly some of the worst days of my life. The smell made everything worse. I couldn't sleep. The cell was so packed that everyone was squeezed into whatever little space they could find. People were sitting shoulder to shoulder with their knees pulled up because there wasn't enough room to stretch their legs. Every time I tried moving my legs, I would end up pushing into somebody else's space. And trust me, the last thing I wanted was to start an argument in a room I couldn't leave. The few guys who seemed to run the place were the only ones lying down properly. Everywhere else just stayed where they were, trying to steal a few minutes of sleep without getting in someone else's way. By the second day, I wasn't even thinking about getting out anymore. I was just wishing there was enough space on the floor for me to lie down. I never imagined I would miss my tiny apartment that much. After all the years I'd spent complaining about how small it was, I would have happily gone back and slept on that floor. At least there, I could stretch my legs. But even more than getting out of that cell, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Less than 2 days earlier, we had been sitting together in my apartment. Now the police were telling me she was dead. I kept asking myself the same question over and over. How? I kept replaying everything we had done since the night I picked her up in the rain, hoping I'll remember something I'd missed. The more I thought about it, the less any of it made sense. How could someone I'd spoken to less than 24 hours earlier suddenly be gone? Later on the second day, a police officer walked over to the cell and called my name. He led me into one of the interview rooms.